In this tutorial I'm going to illustrate two ways to make a montage using two images. And I have in my project bin a flag image and a Canon image, of which the Canon image is the actual image open, and I just have a single layer in the layers palette at the moment. So I'm going to double click on the flag, and that'll bring that image up, and I'll double click on the hand tool so that it fits on the screen. Now I can close the project bin so I have a little bit more room to work with here. And you can see I have two images, and I want to have these two images be as one image but two separate layers. So I'll just take the layer icon or layer thumbnail from the layers palette and drag it on top of the Canon image. I'll hold the shift key down and then release the left mouse button and then release the shift key. This ensures that the Canon image will place itself in the center of the Canon image, and you can see the two layers. The bottom layer is the Canon, the top layer is the flag. Now to make a montage I need to see both images in some way. So if I start to erase pixels in the top layer, I'll be able to see the Canon. So I'll take the eraser tool, just a standard eraser tool, change its size to, I'll just pick something like that, about 124 pixels, and I have a hard edge eraser, and I'm going to just erase. Now you can see that I can erase the pixels for the flag layer, and you can see I've cut a hole in the flag layer, and I can see the Canon, but it wasn't done with any finesse. You notice the edges where I erased was very hard, and I just strictly go right through the flag and you see the Canon. Let me just do an undo to eliminate that, and let's take a little more care now. Let's select an eraser tool that has soft edges or feather, and I'll just double click on the one that had the feather, that's the fuzzy edges, and again I'll run the size up to about 125, and then instead of erasing 100% of the pixels, I'll drop the opacity of the tool down to, I'll pick 50%. where it'll be more of a translucency than a transparency. And now if I click and drag, you see I get the Canon to show through, but in a nice, much softer, what I consider more appealing way. And I can do multiple strokes with the eraser tool if I want more of a particular portion of the Canon to show through. So something like that, and another stroke there, another stroke there, and so on. And you can see I'm erasing the pixels of the flag layer so we can see the Canon, but not to a transparency, to a translucency with nice soft edges. And I could make the eraser tool even larger to give me a little softer effect. Now there's nothing wrong with this process. The thing that I don't like about it is you erase pixels. You actually destroy the flag layer. And if you want to back up, there is no unerase tool, but there is an undo button, of course. But I'd have to undo all my work to get back to where I started. That might be 20 or 30 clicks and drags of the eraser tool. And that, to me, is just not the way to do this. So now I'd like to show you an alternate way. Now instead of erasing the pixels from a layer, I'm going to show you how you can use a layer mask. Now layer masks for image layers are generally not available, or I shouldn't say generally, they're just not available in Photoshop Elements as they are in the full Photoshop program. But there's some tricks we can use to simulate that. First thing I'm going to do is throw away our flag layer, because we're just going to do something absolutely different. So we have a Canon image, and I'll double click on the flag image again in the project bin to bring that image onto the screen, and I'll close the project bin, just give me more room. I'm going to demonstrate a way to create a montage using the same two images, but this time we will not destroy any pixels. We'll use a layer mask, and we need to steal, if I can use that word, steal a layer mask from some other function, because layer masks are not a feature of Photoshop Elements. They are certainly a great feature of the professional Photoshop program. So I'll show you how we can get around that in this case. First, I'm going to the project bin and again open the flag image. And I want to save that as a pattern. So I'll go up to Edit, come down to Define Pattern. Now by default, the entire image is selected. There are no selections, so the program assumes the entire image is the selection. So we'll define the pattern with the selection, which is the entire flag. And you can see that it's picked up the entire flag as an icon and it's given it the name flag 1 or just flag JPG. I'm going to change the name to just flag. It doesn't matter, just so that you know you can do that. And I'll click OK. Now I'll close or I'll minimize the flag image so it's not on the screen, and I just have the cannon. Now the pattern stamp tool is in the toolbox along with the clone stamp tool. So I'll hold the mouse button down on that icon group and you'll see the pattern stamp tool. And if I click on that, in the options bar to the right of the little pattern sample, I can click on that and you can see all the patterns I have saved on my computer. And you can see that sure enough the flag pattern is one there at the very end. And I just wanted you to see that it was there. I'm going to click on the title bar of the image so that it goes away. There is a pattern adjustment layer which uses the pattern stamp. And remember that adjustment layers come with layer masks, and that's how we're going to get our layer mask. So we'll go over to this icon on the layers palette and create a new adjustment layer. And you've done levels and hue, saturation and other functions, but this time we'll use pattern. We'll click on pattern. We get this pattern fill dialog box. It happened to go to the flag pattern, but if I click on the drop down arrow you see all the patterns there. We could choose whichever pattern we wanted, for example that pink or that leopard skin and so on. But I'll click on the flag pattern and then I'll click OK. We now have a layer with a layer mask, and we see the flag as we did in the earlier version of this tutorial. So I'll get a paintbrush now, and you remember from layer masking that if we paint in a layer mask blacks and whites and grays, that we can change the opacity of what we see beneath that layer. Now that's a pretty large brush. My computer brought it up at 665 pixels. I'm going to knock it down to something around 100 pixels or so, about 150. It's a soft edge, you can see it's fuzzy, and I do need to be painting black. So I'm going to swap the colors in my color swatches here so that black is the foreground. And as before with the eraser tool, I'm going to knock the opacity of the brush down to around 50%. And even though it's the brush, it's the same function as the eraser tool. And we won't paint a black as we have selected. We'll paint 50% black, which would be a gray. So I just click and I'll drag on the screen. And it looks sort of like magic. But what I really had done is painted here on the mask. And you can see there's a double outline around the little mask thumbnail. You want to make sure that's there, and to ensure that, all you have to do is click on that mask right there to know that it was selected, and then just paint. And if you want the cannon to show through a little bit more, paint again and again, another stroke, and then release the mouse and press it again and do another stroke, and you can change the opacity of the flag, and we can bring the cannon in like so. Now it looks pretty much the same as it did with the eraser tool, but look, we've painted on a mask. If we switch the paintbrush to white, we can unpaint, if I can use such a term, where we couldn't unerase. So we really do have an unpaint tool in this case, but we didn't have an unerase tool. Then I could go back to the black and so on. Now let me show you one other little item. I'm going to do some undos here just to step back a lot with all that painting. And let's see if I can't quite get back all the way. So I'll paint with white in here to try to knock most of this down. There's another sort of a sub tool, if you will, with this paintbrush, and that's the spray brush right here. You may not be aware of the spray brush. So let me get a foreground color of black. Let me choose the spray brush. And this is just like a little artist's airbrush. If I hold the mouse down and just hold, see how it continues to paint? I'm just holding the left button down. Here, I'll do it again. Hold the left button down, it continues to paint. So I can paint like I was doing with the brush, but with the airbrush, if I dwell a little while in a certain location and then speed it up in other locations, I get different effects. I find that this is very handy for doing montages. And you can see that the cannon comes through. So that I actually have shown you 3 techniques: one with the eraser tool, one with the paintbrush tool, and one with the airbrush tool, but using masks in the last 2 cases. And I think the layer mask, being non-destructive, is the way that I would choose to do this.